Welcome back to another edition of Sly Sixers. We are going to continue with player grade. Sorry it took a bit to put another video out. Finals just ended, so I have been doing stuff on the main channel. By the way, if you are new here, subscribe to Sly Sixers, subscribe to my main channel, Sly Hooper, and also subscribe to my third channel, Sly Anime. We'll all be talking about other stuff, non-sports related, anime shows, all that stuff. Now that the housekeeping's out of the way, let's grade Mr. Tyrese Maxey, who is in a very interesting spot. He is entering his 7th year, which is just fucking wild. Just seems like yesterday I was watching the COVID draft and watching him cry on Zoom after the Sixers drafted him and endeared himself to the fan base. Every year he's improved, and he backed up his talk this season. Before the season started, he talked about how much he hated the 24-25 season and that he wanted to make it up. He wanted to bring the team back to the playoffs, and he did all of that. And before I give my grade, I just want to talk about his season a little bit and whether or not he can get better and whether or not he is a superstar or is on the precipice of being a superstar, and maybe one or two things that need to happen for him to reach superstar status. So let's start out with the first 2 months of the season, right? Because Tyrese Maxey started out the gates on fire, especially the first 2 months of the season. First 35 games, he basically averaged 31 points a game, 6.8 assists, nearly 2 steals, 4.5 rebounds, 40% shooting from 3 on over 9 3-point attempts per game, 47.7% from the field, 52.8% on twos. And then after that, there was a little bit of a noticeable dip because Nick Nurse was a basketball terrorist, and Maxey averaged in those first 35 games 39.8 minutes per game. But Maxey improved. He backed up his talk, and these were legit superstar numbers the first 35 games. The problem was he got tired. His legs were dead. And as a result, he tailed off a little bit in the second half of the season. So the first 35 games, I gave you those numbers. The other half of the season, he averaged 25.7 points per game, 6.3 assists, still nearly 2 steals. His rebounding went down, and he shot 32.7% from 3, shot 44.6% from the field overall. Still had the twos up higher, but he was taking a little bit more mid-rangers. And I want to start there first before I talk about, the leadership he displayed this season, his playoff performance, and all that stuff, because that right there shows the consistency needed to become a superstar or have the reputation of a superstar or what have you. Because the second half of that season, Tyrese Maxey was tired. He lost his legs a little bit, and also he got injured. This was the second season in a row he had an injury to his shooting hand, and that clearly impacted his shooting. But still, this was the third year where he was basically the number one lead perimeter option. Because if you remember, he first assumed that role in the 23-24 season when the James Harden stuff was happening and Daryl Morey was a liar, and he basically held out until Daryl Morey traded him to the Clippers. And from that point on, it was Maxey's team to lead from the perimeter. And it's interesting that his three-point percentage on those pull-up threes has basically never eclipsed 34%. In 23-24, he shot 32.8% on pull-up threes, nearly 5 attempts per game. The next season, the season from hell, in 59 games, shot 32.5% on 6 pull-up three-point attempts per game. Then this past season, 25-26, he shot 33.5% on pull-up threes on 5.2 attempts. But there's a note here. Pre-All-Star break, he shot 36.9% on pull-up three-pointers. And then post-All-Star break, and then a few weeks later after that, the pinky injury happened, 24.5%. Now, why am I bringing up pull-up three-pointers? Because that has been the weapon over the last 10 years or so that has made guards become superstars. The pull-up three-pointer, being a threat to pull up off the dribble, and having defenses come out basically near the half-court line to guard you, and you get so much attention. But the reason this is so important for Tyrese Maxey is because he's long been an elite shooter. Because if you remember, starting in his second year where he got real minutes because of the Ben Simmons saga, he shot 42.7% on 4.1 three-point attempts per game. Then the next year, he increased his volume, playing off of James Harden and Joel Embiid for a full season, shooting 6.2 threes a game while shooting 43.4% from the field. Then in 23-24, he shot 37% from three overall on 8 attempts, and that number's been down the last few years. He has always been an elite catch-and-shoot three-point shooter, always above 40%. But what's been dragging it down the last few years is the increased volume in pull-up threes. Because in 21-22, he shot 2 pull-up threes per game and shot 40%. Then in 22-23, on nearly 2.5 pull-up threes per game, shot 38.7%. And that's because he didn't have to shoot that much volume, and it's harder to shoot pull-up threes. But that's the shot that will unlock everything. And when Maxey increased his volume, as I talked about earlier, the percentages dropped. And there's a number of reasons for that, tough defense and all that stuff. But that is the swing skill, and that is a skill I have harped on in the past when I have done Maxey videos on the main channel. If he becomes even a 35 or 36% pull-up three-point shooter, then he becomes really unguardable because he's one of the fastest humans on the planet while also being one of the best shooters on the planet. And I think we saw a preview of what Maxey could look like as a superstar if that pull-up three-pointer is honed in down pat. And I know people are going to focus on his passing and stuff, and I think every year he's improved as a playmaker, but he's not like a natural playmaker, and I do think his vision can be limited sometimes. And I do think throughout this season, the first 35 games, I thought he had a better balance of when to score and when to get guys involved versus the latter half where he felt like he had to do everything. And I think part of that was because Joel Embiid was missing games. Paul George got suspended. And I think striking that balance got a little out of whack for him. And that's why you saw his numbers dip. And that's why you saw him, for the most part, have, I wouldn't say a disappointing playoffs. I thought in the first round he played well, but in the Knicks series he was definitely disappointing. And I think part of that was because the pinky, like he talked about it a lot, he really couldn't feel the ball sometimes when he was shooting, and he re-injured it quite a few times, even after coming back, because he did miss 3 weeks initially. But that's the swing skill for Tyrese Maxey. Now, if you want to talk about the season holistically, I do think him backing up his words, making sure the Sixers never have that type of season again that they had in the 24-25 season, bringing his team back to the playoffs, assuming the team basically, it's his team, although there is a little bit of, and we'll talk about it when I do Joel Embiid, but there's a little bit of a cloud over the organization because of the Embiid and Paul George contracts. And I do think there is a little bit of, can Maxey ever be the full leader on this team? And I do think that's possible, but it will require relinquishing some previous priors from the older stars. Now, I will say, there is a dumb subsection of Sixer fans that think we should trade Maxey right now. A dumb subsection of Sixer fans. And I just don't know why you would do that. Not only is that fucking insane, that is fucking stupid. He's 25, going to be 26, entering his prime. He gets better every year. And he can show VJ Edgecombe the ropes still. And he's going to get even better. And on top of that, I have always said Maxey is at his best when he is playing both on the ball and off the ball. A healthy combination of the two. And I think he hasn't had much of an opportunity to be off the ball as much as he would like. Because, one, guys are in and out of the lineup all the time, and he's had to run the offense. He's had to take more difficult shots as a result. But I think if the Sixers put more offensive options around Maxey, be it health from the stars or adding more players to the roster, then Maxey's full skill set will be utilized. And that's what makes him special. And that's what makes him unique on the court. And as we have seen with the last 8 NBA champions, you can win a championship with different types of builds, as long as you are able to identify what is best around your best players. And trading Maxey is just not in the cards for me. I think that would be incredibly fucking stupid and short-sighted. Basically, the only way Maxey should be traded is if Mike Ganzi and the Sixers front office decides to have a lobotomy and attach draft picks to get off of Joel Embiid and Paul George's contracts, which then really limits how you can build around a Maxey Edgecombe backcourt, which at that point, then you would have to trade Maxey, because at that point, that's the guy that will get you the most value draft pick-wise. And then you would have to start building around Edgecombe. But I don't want to do that, because there is something to be said about building around this dynamic backcourt, where you have one of the fastest humans in the NBA, and you have one of the most athletic two-way guards in the NBA already as a rookie, and they clearly play well off of each other. And if VJ Edgecombe improves, like I talked about in the Edgecombe grade video, then Maxey can operate off the ball more. And if Joel Embiid, and Joel Embiid's going to be here next year, like it or not, if Joel Embiid plays 15 more games and plays 45 or 50 games, that's going to be another guy that commands attention, and Maxey will be able to play off the ball and utilize his speed to attack the cracks in the defense, because the defense will be tilted one way. Now, Maxey did decline, especially post-All-Star break, but he was still really good. But he had an injury to his shooting hand, which limited his full potential. And he was playing 39 minutes a fucking game. And that's the other thing, too. Nick Nurse needs to stop being a minutes terrorist. Because Maxey can work on his conditioning all summer. He started taking Pilates last summer. All this stuff, preparing for this type of season. But it's still a heavy workload. And by the way, Maxey got better at finishing around the rim. The last 2 years, he has been shooting over 40% on mid-range. And that is one area where he could get better. But he has the floater. I would like to see him use that more. But that would require having multiple ways to get him going downhill. Not just having the ball in his hands and setting a screen. Because I don't think he's that elite of a pick-and-roll player. He's just too small. And while he can beat guys to the spot with his speed, defenses can easily load up on that if they see it a couple of times. So you have to use him in multiple ways. And he's one of the best shooters on the planet. So he should be able to be used off the ball. And that requires having multiple players that can put the ball on the deck and make a play. And that will only help Maxey. I think on the whole, and I know this video might sound like a Maxey critique or something like that, or simply just focusing on what he can do to get better next year, was a giant step towards reaching his potential. And I've said a long time ago, I'm done putting a ceiling on Maxey, because every time I do, he just gets better. And I stopped doing that like 3 or 4 years ago, and he keeps getting better. And how do we know that he won't get better next year? Like, the kid has a special work ethic. He has an infectious personality. And I know he didn't have the best playoffs this past playoffs, but his previous 3 playoff runs, I have seen it. That dude ain't scared of the moment. And that Knicks series in 24, that felt like a culmination of a lot of things, where he averaged 30 points a game, 5 rebounds, 7 assists, 40% from 3 on over 9 attempts per game, while shooting 47% from the field overall and 53% on twos. And Maxey sustained that for 35 games. Now, if he finds a way to average 35 minutes a game, I'm sure he'll have the legs to consistently put up those performances more often. And those are the final few steps to me that will elevate him from top 15. And he was an All-NBA player this year, All-NBA third team. Those are the next few steps for him to go from that to becoming second team. Maybe not first team, because I think first team's going to be really hard with Luka, Shea, and all those guys. But for the first 35 games of this past season, Maxey's offensive impact was up there with anybody. Maybe on the back end of that universe, but he was still in that universe. But superstars have to be consistent like that. And he did fall off a little bit. But overall on the season, I'm giving Tyrese Maxey an A.